Oh no, I fell asleep for 2 hours.
How do you watch that? Like,
Because I fell
With
asleep.
your eyes?
No, like I was asleep.
you know we're recording, right?
No,
Yes.
you didn't do the countdown.
Yeah.
I knew what he was doing when he stood there with a grin on his
Yeah.
face.
I suspected that, but I just kept going.
Andy is sitting over here watching golf. Here's the I can respect a good napping sport, but I don't know if I could. I might get some hate for this, but I don't know if I can just sit there and watch golf for hours. Can you do that?
Yeah, kind of.
I don't know if I can focus.
He tried to say no, but he can do it.
Yeah, because I can. Because if it's an interesting hole or something's close, then yeah. But at the beginning, usually it's kind of like NASCAR.
Well, yes.
Start at the beginning and you fade off and you wake back up and there's like 20.
You're like in and out, in and out. Well, like NASCAR, I can watch it the last 20 laps,
Yeah.
and then I find that exciting.
But it's like that in golf.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to the Words with the Woodsman podcast. Thanks for joining us this week. We had a pretty good week this week.
Yeah. But real quick, the one thing you can't fall asleep to is hockey.
Yeah, because you're like, pew, meow, meow.
Because
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like 12 degrees. Well, if you're watching it in person.
You set your room to the temperature of the ice when you're watching.
You know, I wouldn't be shocked.
Drop the temp.
I wouldn't be shocked
Josh
if
is watching
Mr.
hockey
Detroit
again.
here does that.
No, because my wife doesn't allow me to.
Do,
72 is the minimum.
you know, you are the reason, like you personally are my greatest exposure to the sport of hockey. Because believe it or not, South Mississippi had one hockey team. I don't think they're even there anymore, but it was like the Mississippi Seahawks or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
the ice melted. I heard about that.
Is that what happened?
No, I have
don't
no
know.
idea.
No, not the Seahawks, the Sea Wolves. It was some kind of. It's not even a real thing.
Belosi?
Biloxi?
Biloxi?
Is that what it is?
Not. Yeah, Biloxi.
Is this like
Biloxi,
your?
Mississippi? It's right.
You're
They're,
right-
on,
I thought
they're
you
right
said-
next to the beach.
I thought you said Pelosi. I was like, that's a
No.
that's a politician,
No,
not a location.
No, their ice rink's right next to the beach.
Well, I don't think they're there anymore. I don't know if it's
they're
the.
still there.
Are they?
Yeah, they're part of the.
Is it like a minor league? Is that kind of like the
They're
like
not
the
the
rookie league?
SPHL. I think it's the
Speak English, brother.
Fed League. I think.
The Fed League.
I don't know. It's another one of the small minor league.
It's like just a minor league hockey.
Yeah, but it's a lot more fighting and chaotic.
Okay. Well, I mean, I what's the old saying? Like you go to a fight and hope a hockey game breaks out or something like that.
Game and a boxing match broke up.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when I was a kid, we had the NHL game on Nintendo 64, and the best part about that was just getting in fights on the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's
Didn't really care about the hockey. It was just more of. I guess we could have just bought a fighting game and would have
Yeah.
saved a lot more time.
fighting in the games now is pretty fun. You can do uppercuts, pop their helmet off.
Based on the Atari that you used, like comparing it to
No, it was 2 sticks.
Pong. He's like, oh, that's right. He grew up on the reservation.
Yeah. We discussed all that last episode
We did.
with your diplomatic immunity, and
Not diplomatic.
I want us to take bets. Like we got plenty of officer friends. Like we could figure this thing out. Get people to vote on it on the podcast. Maybe that's how we go viral.
I mean, we could.
Yeah.
I think he even agrees he doesn't have it now.
Well, you don't have
You need to say it.
Diplomat. Yeah, you wanna
Diplomatic immunity.
Yeah.
So that's why he knows he hasn't said it because he can't. It's like, there's
See?
no way I have said diplomatic
There's
immunity.
also a sandwich like that I can't say that.
Physically cannot pronounce
I
diplomatic.
don't even know what sandwich that could be. Oh, a po' boy.
Yeah, I can't.
You can't say that?
No.
Tell him what you say. Please tell him what you say. I'll set this up. So we were going to lunch, and I introduced Randy to this sandwich. Okay, it's a sandwich that's found on the Gulf Coast,
Absolutely.
like New Orleans po' boys, right? And Randy goes, "I want to go get a pool boy," and we went, "Excuse me, what?"
Well, okay, that's a bit different.
I want to go get a pole.
Po? Say po.
So on our way to dinner last night, I told my wife, I said, "How do you say it again?" And she says it real, and I still can't even do it.
Say po,
Po
boy.
boy,
Now put them together.
pole boy. I can't.
You can't
that-
do it.
We did this forever trying to get it down.
Any speech therapist out there looking for extra work,
We've got a project for you.
I think it's like that northern Michigan accent.
I don't know. Don't blame them.
I think that was a couple of times you hit your head.
Well,
that was some of those hockey injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had a really cool week this past week. Some great stuff happened. You know, you guys are part. So for those of you who are not like a part of a group with the Woodsmen, we have like our own little group chat and all that kind of stuff. And what was it, about a week ago, maybe a little more than that? One of the guys in the group, he's never been to the group. He's in the group chat. He kind of found us through another church that kind of partners with us, and he found us on their website. So he shot me, my number's on their website. So he shot me a message and said, hey, I'm looking for a community. I'm looking for a group of guys to spend time with. Can I be a part of the ministry? And so I let him into the group chat and we did all that. I haven't heard from him in about it's been a couple months, right? And so all of a sudden, just out of the blue, he shoots a message into our group chat and he's just asking, hey, he's new to the faith. He's like, hey, how do I go about reading the Bible? Does anyone have any recommendations with that? And I know you guys probably saw that, right? The whole interaction. Well, I kind of shot him a message offline. We sent him a plan and all that kind of stuff, which is the Bible recap, which I think is a fantastic plan for people who are starting out, and maybe even people who, if you've read the Bible for 20 years, the Bible recap's a really cool plan. I think it's all over YouVersion and all that kind of stuff. Well, I shot him a text outside of the group chat and I said, hey, would you like to go grab lunch tomorrow? And I'd love to talk to you and maybe we can get you kind of plugged into the group and all that kind of stuff. And so we met up and we're sitting there and we're chatting and he's telling me this story of how, you know, he moved here from another country, moved here from overseas about, I think he said like 10 years ago. He's been trying to like find community. He's been through some stuff in his life. And basically he's along the lines of, hey, I've tried all this other stuff. I want to give God a shot in my life because I haven't tried that yet. And we determined in our conversation, I said, man, I asked him, I said, hey, have you ever started your relationship with Jesus? And he said, no. I said, well, do you want to fix that? We're in Brown Bag. Everyone's like,
Brown Bag is a restaurant.
So no, we're not in a brown bag. We're in a restaurant here in Knoxville. And so it's a lunchtime rush. So there's all kinds of people walking around and he just goes, yeah, I want to do that. And so led him through the prayer and he prayed to receive Jesus right there. So that was on Wednesday of last week. Okay. So fast forward to Sunday, one of the guys in the group, he started coming to church with us. And so we pick him up, we take him to church. And what's really cool about this is we took him to lunch afterwards, which we had Cane's. Cane's is pretty good. Got some of that Baptist chicken after church. But then we took him down to the lake and we baptized him. He gave his life to Jesus a few months back. And that's something that we all, like, our entire group was there. We were super excited about that. And then, Randy, I know you had to leave after that.
Yep.
But then we all took boats out and we waxed Andy and fishing. So
Waxed is an understatement.
yeah.
Cash caught so many fish.
It was crazy.
Well, I mean,
So
it was his
many.
day.
It was his day.
God gave it to him. It was his day, right?
It was crazy. There's a log sitting there and Cash is just going whoop, whoop, whoop.
And
Josh was nailing them too.
Andy's like, what's happening here?
I'm trying to land mine on his bobber. Just
yeah. So I think you crossed lines with him at one point in
I
time.
tried to just snag him.
Well, and we weren't even planning on taking the boats out. So we were going to bank fish. Well, I'm in church, and it's me and my wife, and Cash is there. And Cash gets up and goes, it's getting near the end of the service. Cash goes, hey, I got to go to the bathroom. I go, okay. So he leaves the service, goes,
Comes back.
He never comes back. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, did he fall in? Like, what did he get locked in the bathroom? Like, what's going on here? Well, on the way back, so I finally go, man, I can't really hold it anymore either. So I need to go to the bathroom. So I salked out. Andy and Cash are conspiring in the lobby.
He ran into me.
Ran into Andy.
All the people.
Andy and Cash are conspiring, and they come up to me, and Cash goes, hey, we got a plan. Me and Andy's already talked it over. And I go, wait, what? He goes, group today. We're going to take boats. I'm like, I don't know if any of our boats are charged, and Andy's was not ready to go. But like, okay, I'm like, Andy, can we pull this off? Like, and they came up with a plan, and so that's how we kind of wound up with the last minute boat edition.
And everything worked.
Everything worked.
Everything worked?
I was actually kind of blown away by that. It's been, when was the last time you had your boat in the
4
water?
months.
4 months ago.
It was not ready. It was full of stuff.
No charged batteries.
Nothing.
I still don't know how.
It started first time, and you can't get yours to work.
He told me the other day that
Oh,
he's
yeah.
never charged his house battery on his boat.
Does it, when I start it, does it recharge itself?
No.
No.
you sure?
I don't think your motor has an alternator.
I have a magical battery.
But
I
that
don't know if that's
battery
the case.
only is for starting, right? It's not hooked up to anything.
Nothing else.
Well, that could be some of it.
You'll get down there one day and
But
it's
when
going to
it runs, it doesn't have any way. It doesn't recharge itself.
No.
No.
I did hook it up last night just to see.
How dead was it?
It was full.
There's no way.
It was full.
There's no way.
All
I'm
right,
serious.
I want to take cover off.
Ashley's going like buying new
I
batteries
have
and putting this
replaced
thing.
the other batteries multiple times because they run the depth finder, the trolling motor.
Well, that
I have
makes
never
sense.
once replaced this one for
Wait,
10
so
years.
as soon as it dies, you replace it, so you don't even keep charging them?
That's a good one. I recharge them. I mean, once the cells go bad.
Okay, I'm
Every
like,
single-
it's dead. We're going to get a new one. I'm like,
And-
hold on.
We're about to change. We're about to change his life. These batteries are rechargeable.
They are. I didn't know.
It's not like the AAA batteries in your remote.
I keep like 6 or 7 in the boat. You guys are crazy.
But yeah, that blew me away when he told me that. I'm like, how in the world? And
I convinced myself that it's self-charged.
I'm like, how in the world does this boat still crank?
You're sure that it doesn't?
Not on a motor as small as yours. Yours is like a 40. Is that right?
45.
40. I didn't know they made a 45. 40.
They
it's
stopped
yours is
in like
50.
1994.
Your Honda's a 50.
It's a 45.
45. Okay. I don't think
It's not.
I'm not sure.
We bought it in 1994. I didn't forget the horsepower of my motor.
It
Well,
says 50 on it.
No, it doesn't.
Well, I'm not sure on like motors that small because I don't know about the 300s or the big ones, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if they have an alternator or not. Someone can comment on this episode if you know about that. The bigger motors might, but I know your smaller motors don't.
But does it just not pull that much
I
charge
know
when it
your
starts it?
inboards do.
Well, yeah, but that's an inboard.
Yeah, it's an inboard. But,
Does a 4-stroke help at all with that?
I don't think so.
but it may not take a lot to crank the amps.
Still,
heard it.
And you
still,
heard it. It
but
was
10
no-
years though. 10
I haven't touched it.
years.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to think if it's all it's doing is starting, and it's just sitting in the boat,
I don't know. I got nothing.
and there's nothing to.
I
draw
charged
off
it
of
now.
Yeah, well, I'm glad
that
you
I
did.
know.
Now that you know, 10 years into this, right?
Yeah, I had no idea to even check it. It's never not clicked.
Yeah.
And you got in and backed it in. Randy
It fires right up.
Started it
It's a miracle
down
motor.
for a minute, turn
took
right
off
back.
full speed.
It kind of like lists one direction though. Like,
The side you're sitting on.
yeah. Oh yeah.
aluminum.
Thanks for that.
It's a
I will tell you what though, his boat will haul though, because
It's scoot.
he had 3 guys in his boat. I had Cash in mine, just me and Cash, and mine's got a 70 on it, but it's aluminum boat. My boat's a little bit heavier than his boat. And Andy was like, he took off and left me. I had the hammer down. I couldn't catch up with him.
after Cash said, "Let's race."
It's race. Well, I was running 30. I had 30 on the
I can
speedometer.
go 30.
So I was slowly gaining him.
Man, you can gain more speed if you buff that stuff out. Take all
I
that,
think
the bottom off.
if I had put the right letters on, maybe it would go.
Maybe that's it. He also has never registered his boat.
It's
So
registered. I didn't know you had to put the letters
Numbers.
and
The
I
numbers.
googled it. You do have to do it.
Yes,
I did.
I told you that.
So what kind of boat is it?
It's still so. It's been registered in Connecticut. Well, the numbers on the side are Connecticut. I haven't
So
lived there.
if any
20
game
years.
wardens are out there,
Try to catch me.
try to catch it.
Well, we've tried to keep him legal. We tried to get him to correct
It is
this.
legit registered. I just didn't know you actually had
put-
to do the number.
You got to
thing.
put the
I thought-
numbers on.
I have numbers. They're just the wrong ones.
We're coming up on our first break. So we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back and we'll dive off into the book of James. All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. We're getting ready to dive off into our reading today. We finally finished chapter 1, fellas. We're getting into chapter 2 today.
4 months.
4 months. I think we've only been doing this for 2 months, but
Felt like 4.
maybe 4 months. Yeah, because we started recording before we actually launched all the
It was
episodes.
12 episodes. I guess you're right. So it's 3 months.
It's only 2 months. We started in March.
But we're doing one a week.
Oh, well, there we go. Okay. Well, the magic, what is the magic of television? Okay. So we made it chapter 2. And so, where we ended last week, it was that whole passage where James is, and once again, let's remember he's talking to believers, where he said, those who consider themselves religious yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongue deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. In verse 27, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after the orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. And so he's continuing with this thought, because another thing I think is important for us to point out is when this was written originally, like these chapter markings and verse markings, none of that was there. And so like, this is James. It's not like, because I think a lot of times we like to like pause, like we read a chapter and we pause and we're like, okay, next thought. No, that's not exactly how it would have been written. This would have all been like a continuation, right? And so chapter 2, I'm going to read a couple verses and we can chat about it. But verse 1 says, my brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, here's a good seat for you, but you say to the poor man, you stand there or sit on the floor by my feet, have you not discriminated amongst yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Especially with some things that happen in church or what you've heard about not dressing the right way.
Well, yeah. And the thing is too, is I think sometimes, and this is the thing that for me, I think sometimes we subconsciously do this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, let's zoom out for a second. Let's talk about what was happening around this. So James is writing to all these believers. There's a lot of them that are new believers, right? And they're trying to figure this thing out, and they're in dispersion. So they're scattered all about. There's persecution happening. There's all these different things. What would be your motivation? This is where my mind was going with this today when I was studying this, of what would motivate you to treat a rich person differently? It's what they can do for you. Right? Like if you're hiding from Rome and you're like, hey, I don't want to be persecuted or whatever, right? And you've got this person who's wealthy, like they've got the resources, they've got the ability to maybe hide you, to maybe pay a few of your bills if you lose your job because of your faith, or you're doing all these different things. But it to me, and I read an article on this passage where they talked about how it really goes back to your faith ultimately, of do you trust that God's going to take care of you? And when you allow that to be in the backdrop of all this, it allows you to, when you look at other people, to treat them fairly and to treat them equally, regardless of their status. Mm-hmm. Because it's not about what did Jesus teach? Hey, go do things for people that can't pay you back, right? Like that was teachings of Jesus. But because what would happen, and just like this is something that's been in our culture for centuries, right? Like it's funny that, you don't see none of these problems are really new, right? They've been around forever. Yeah. Of, hey, just because a rich man comes into your meeting or your church or your small group or whatever, right? Don't treat them differently than the person who's poor that's coming in. I just found that just a healthy reminder for all of us.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do it to this day. Like you said, this has been going on for years. And some people think it's okay. I struggle with it.
Yeah.
You look at it from a worldview, everything that we do is based upon that status. There's judgment placed on everything. So as you continue to talk about it, I think about it like it's horrible. There are positions that each person holds where they work. There's positions, volunteer positions that are held at the church that some have some superiority in their mind that make them greater or better than someone else. But in the eyes of God, they're not. And I think that's really hard. Because you invite someone over your house, like you said, that might be wealthier or have more status or a higher position. Mm-hmm. They have more influence, right? And so you want them to like you. You want,
right.
And then you might disregard someone else based on, but in God's eyes,
Well,
That doesn't make sense.
And this permeates even beyond that, right? So most people, if you were to go around, right, if we were to take a poll, most people would go, yeah, absolutely. Like the church, like you shouldn't treat people differently regardless of that, right? Regardless of whether they make money or whether they don't have money or wherever, right? And that's a good thing that there's a lot of people that would say that, right? But at the same time, this also permeates into like your job and what you do, because as a follower of Jesus, when your boss comes in a room, if you suck up to your boss and treat him or her differently, and then look at your coworkers and treat them like trash, like that's the same thing, right? Like you're doing the same exact thing as what James is warning us about.
Well, the funny thing is, if you have a boss at work, and I challenge those to think about this thought process, and then you go do something outside of work where they're not in charge, do you still treat them that way? Right? Or now are you on a level playing field in your eyes? Obviously we know where it stands in God's eyes, but I find that funny. I'll be doing something recreationally outside of work and I still have the mentality that they're my boss and I am trying to gain their respect. I'm trying to get them to appreciate me, right? It's not about, hey, we're playing golf and we're just golfers, right? Or, hey, we're at church and we're just believers. Or, hey, they always hold that it's my fault, right? I shouldn't view it that way. But I think there are a lot of people that do that. And so I have some employees that work for me and we'll be doing something for fun and they'll be like, yes, sir, or yes, boss, or like, buddy, we're having fun. Like,
relax.
That sounds cool. Can you say, no, just kidding.
Just relax.
But that's not the case. And I think this paradigm shift is hard to make from, I mean, we just put people at levels.
Yeah. And the thing is when you put when your backdrop is the cross and your backdrop is what Jesus did for us, right? And your backdrop is looking at this, because this is what this is all about. It's all about looking at this from an eternal mindset. He's writing to believers. This letter was not written to non-Christians. It was written to believers. And what James is saying is, hey, focus on the things. What did he spend pretty much all of chapter 1? He was talking about eternal things. Focus on eternity. And if we focus on eternity and we focus on how did Jesus break down the law, right? He broke it down in love your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And if you follow those two things and you put those two things at the forefront of your life hey, you know what? I'm going to do these two things right here. And you stop worrying about the little things. And I know it's hard. Okay. It's a lot easier said than done. Right.
Oh yeah.
But because this is an ongoing thing, right? I'm not sitting here saying this like I've accomplished it. No, absolutely not. These are things I have to work on every single day.
I just realized I'm terrible at it.
Well, the thing is we get so hung up on these worldly things that are not eternal. And when we do that, then you're going to want to leverage these people for your gain, right? They don't gain you anything in heaven.
Right.
They're only gaining you earthly things, right? If you're buddy with your boss, you might get a raise out of that. I can see the motivation, right? You might get a raise out of that, or you might get a promotion out of that. But if you're buddy with your boss, but you're treating your coworkers like garbage and you're talking behind their back and you're gossiping about them and you're putting them down and you're doing all these different things, what does that gain you eternally? Right. You might make it a good ways on planet Earth doing that. Not that's because the worst thing in the world, when you go working with people and you meet those people that like to climb over other people to get to those positions, right? Because they're so fixated. And this is really, it goes back to the same problem. They're so fixated on, gaining whatever it is, that promotion or that position or whatever, that they're willing to sacrifice other people to do that. And for me, that goes back to this of, hey, this goes beyond the church. Yes, this is absolutely an address to the church of, hey, you got people coming to your group, don't treat anyone differently. But at the same time, I think this goes beyond that too.
Yeah.
So now with that being said, are you a good manager or are you somebody that...
Well, I think the problem is more the upside than the downside.
Yeah.
So meaning that I have this view that people that are above me, that I treat them differently even outside of work, because I'm trying to gain what you talked about. But I'm very careful on those that work for me. That's less of an issue. I don't look down at them because we were taught that in leadership, but I was never taught the other way. Right.
Yeah.
So you're taught how to treat your employees, but how to treat your boss, there's a natural instinct to always want their admiration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of a different thought process.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen a leadership book once that talks about
The other
the
going the other
upside,
way.
the downside. You know, we've got figured out.
Well, I can only name one. That's the Bible, right?
true.
And it's the whole
ultimate example.
the
of
ultimate
leadership.
example, right?
Servant leadership,
right?
yeah.
And it's treating everyone equally, regardless of, hey, show no favoritism, right? And that's so hard to do. It is so hard to do, because even then you may not do it on outward, right? You may not outwardly treat anyone, and I hope you don't, right?
Yeah.
You may not outwardly do it, but it's also that internal of, like, I've caught myself before internally, responding differently to different people, whether they're in a different position, or they've been my boss, or they've been someone that's in a leadership position over me. And I found myself internally, not that I was treating the other people badly, but I was responding differently. Or when they would speak, I would listen more, whereas I might zone out with someone else.
Because they're less important.
Right. And that was so convicting to me
Right.
of, you know what? Jesus narrowed this thing down of love God and love people. And if you love your neighbor that way, you're and really lean in on that, man, how much better of a world would we have here?
Yeah. I'm kind of curious on myself. I know I try not to treat anybody like, if you were to talk to my boss, Dino, he knows I talk to him the same way I talk to everybody around me. Like, it doesn't
And
change.
we're working on that.
It doesn't mean treating everyone equally poorly.
There's been like, Josh and them have heard how I talk, and they're like, "How have you not been fired?" I just
Yeah, we
talk,
could work on this.
But yeah, I try to treat everybody the same. But I also, people that I guess I manage, come up with ideas to make my job easier. I don't go, "Oh, whatever." No, I'm kind of like, "Oh, appreciate it. Thank you."
Yeah, thank you.
Fist bump, let's do this, in which they have. I mean,
Well, even think about, like, if you ever go to a funeral, this is getting dark. If you ever go to a funeral and, what's some of the qualities that people admire most, right? And you hear people talk. I've been at funerals and I've heard people say, hey, it didn't matter who you were. They always had time for you. Are they?
Oh, okay.
Are
I
they?
see where you're going? I
Yeah,
wasn't
you
sure.
had no clue. No clue. I like
beating a little faster, like, "Oh."
I like to take you on a roller coaster ride. But
What's their legacy?
What's their legacy? And some of the greatest people. I was at a funeral a few months back of a dear friend, and some of the things that they said about him is, hey, it didn't matter who you were, it didn't matter any of that stuff. He always made time for you.
Yeah.
He would stop his own, like, even his kids, for example, his kids would say something like, because he was a doctor. And so he was very successful. Like, he had tons and tons of patients. Right. And a lot of that was the reason why he had all those patients was, one, also some of this principle too, is it didn't matter who you were. He treated you the same.
Yeah.
The same kindness. And he had that kind spirit about him. But back to what his kids got up there and they're all grown. But his kids said, hey, dad started, he reached a point in time when we were kids where he said, hey, you know what? I'm no longer going to let work come before my family. I'm going to value this time and I'm going to spend time with them.
Yeah.
And it just goes back to, hey, where's your priorities, man? Like, what is your priorities set at? And that's really what I hope our listeners, and for me, if you don't take away anything from this, I took away something from this. And it's just the sheer fact of, if we would really go back to loving God and loving people, how much better of a place would our world be? Because that would just nip so many things in the bud before they even became a problem.
Yeah.
I think subconsciously when you're editing the films that you show lack of favoritism towards Randy.
Yeah.
Always cutting Randy out.
Oh, is that what it is?
Wait until your funeral.
Or,
Oh my God.
well, that just means Randy's got to say more things that make sense.
Yeah.
It's a Randy issue.
Remember, I'm older too, so the odds are.
One day,
So because you're older, you can say things that are less
No. No. Like, he's gonna be.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Let's go back to Po' Boy.
no, but I will say this though. there's a few times like Randy throws some pretty wise nuggets out there.
Yeah, when a couple weeks ago, I didn't even know who. I thought somebody took over.
Who is this guy?
It's like that. You're up the bat and you just swing away, and every once in a while you hit a home run.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, you
I
might go
asked him
for one
what-
for 20, but hey, you hit one home run.
I asked him what happened. He's like, I was unconscious. What'd I say?
What happened?
I zoned out for a minute.
We're still recording. We're done. What?
That was
Well-
brilliant.
Well, so we made it all the way to verse 4.
Peace in my
That's
wife
the
talks.
most in a single
It was a singular thought, and so when we come back for the next episode, we'll pick up with verse 5, which he's continuing this thought, right? And so we'll talk a little bit more about it. But he also starts getting into, taking a look at the law. And so we are coming to the end. We're almost out of time. But when we come back next week, we'll pick back up, verse 5? We'll pick back up with verse 5. And so we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Words with Woodsman podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. We'll see you next time.